A mafia boss discovered his ex-lover being beaten, then what he did next stunned everyone. The alley smelled like rain and rusted metal, the kind of place people avoided without knowing why. But tonight, it wasn't empty. A sharp cry broke through the silence. "Please, stop." The sound echoed against the brick walls, thin but desperate. It wasn't loud enough to draw a crowd, but it was enough. Enough for him. The black car slowed. Inside, Luca De Lorenzo didn't move at first. He was used to sounds like that. In his world, people begged all the time, sometimes for mercy, sometimes for money, sometimes for their lives. And most nights, he didn't interfere. But something about that voice. It pulled at a memory he had buried years ago. "Keep driving," he said calmly. The driver nodded, but just as the car rolled past the mouth of the alley, the voice came again, cracked, trembling, painfully familiar. "Luca." The car stopped, dead still. Inside, the air shifted. Luca's jaw tightened ever so slightly, the only sign that something had changed. Slowly, he turned his head toward the alley. "Wait here," he said. The driver didn't argue. He never did. Luca stepped out into the cold night, his polished shoes hitting the wet pavement with quiet authority. The city noise faded behind him as he walked toward the alley, each step measured, controlled. He had built a life on control. On never reacting too quickly. On never letting emotion dictate action. But right now, something felt different. The alley grew darker as he entered, shadows stretching long under a flickering streetlight. And then he saw them. Two men, one holding a woman by her arm, the other raising his hand again. Smack. Her body jerked with the impact. Luca stopped. For a brief second, everything around him went silent. Because he recognized her, even after all these years, even with her hair messy, her face bruised, her clothes worn. He knew her. Enough. The word wasn't loud, but it carried. Both men froze. They turned slowly, irritation flashing across their faces, until they saw him. And then, everything changed. "Who the hell are you?" One of them stammered, though his voice had already lost its edge. Luca didn't answer. His eyes never left the woman. "Sophia." She looked back at him, her expression caught somewhere between disbelief and something deeper. Something heavier. "Luca," she whispered. The name hung in the air like a ghost. The men glanced at each other, confused. "You know this guy?" one of them asked her. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the moment their eyes met, time rewound. Not in reality, but inside them. Back to a different life. A different version of who they were. Years ago, Luca wasn't a name people feared. He was just a young man with ambition and sharp instincts, trying to survive in a world that didn't give second chances. And Sophia, she had been the one person who made him feel like he didn't need one. They met in a small cafe in Brooklyn. She worked there part-time, juggling school and life, always smiling even when things were hard. He came in one day, sat quietly, and watched her handle a difficult customer with patience he didn't understand. "Why didn't you just tell him to leave?" he asked later. She laughed. "Because not everything needs a fight." He didn't believe that. Back then, fighting was the only thing he knew. But somehow, she softened him. Little by little, she showed him a version of life that wasn't built on fear or power. A version where people could just be. For a while, he tried to live in that world. For her. But the world he came from didn't let go so easily. Opportunities came. Dangerous ones. Profitable ones. And every time he said yes, he drifted further away from her. "You're changing," she told him one night, standing by the window of his apartment. "I'm improving," he replied. "No," she said quietly. "You're losing yourself." He didn't listen. Not then. Not when it mattered. Because power felt like safety. And he had spent too long feeling unsafe. The night they ended, it rained just like this. "I can't do this anymore, Luca," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't have to," he replied. "Just stay. I'll handle everything." "That's the problem," she whispered. "You handle everything, except the one thing that matters." "And what's that?" "Us." He had no answer. And that was answer enough. She left. And he didn't stop her. Now, years later, here she was. Broken, bruised, standing in an alley like the kind of person he used to protect her from. Something twisted inside him. Not anger. Not yet. Something deeper. Regret. Let her go, Luca said finally, his voice calm but heavy. The man holding Sophia tightened his grip instead. Mind your business, he snapped, trying to sound tough. Luca took one step forward. That was all it took. The air shifted again. Because men like Luca didn't need to shout. They didn't need to threaten. Their presence did it for them. Last chance, he said. The second man scoffed. Or what? Luca didn't answer. He just looked at him. And in that look, there was no doubt. No hesitation. Just certainty. The kind that made people realize they had already made a mistake. The man's confidence cracked. Forget it, he muttered to his partner. Let's go. They shoved Sophia slightly and backed away, disappearing into the darkness faster than they had arrived. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same silence. This one was heavier, filled with everything that hadn't been said for years. Sophia swayed slightly. Luca stepped forward instinctively, catching her before she fell. For a moment, neither of them moved. Not because they didn't know what to do, but because they remembered too much. You shouldn't be here, she said softly, pulling away just enough to look at him. I could say the same to you. A faint, tired smile touched her lips. I guess some things don't change. He studied her face, taking in every bruise, every mark. What happened? He asked. She hesitated. Life, she said finally. It wasn't an answer, but it was enough. Luca reached into his coat and took off his jacket, gently placing it around her shoulders. The gesture was simple, familiar, like something from another life. You're still doing that, she said quietly. Doing what? Taking care of things, without asking. He didn't respond, because she wasn't wrong. Come with me, he said after a moment. She looked at him carefully. Luca, it's not what you think, he added. Just, let me help. She hesitated. Years of distance, of pain, of decisions that couldn't be undone. But then she looked down at her hands, trembling slightly. And for the first time in a long time, she let herself not be strong. Okay, she whispered. The car ride was silent. Not awkward, not tense. Just quiet, the kind of quiet that holds history. Instead of taking her to one of his luxury properties, Luca gave a different address. A modest building, clean, but simple, safe. This is yours, she asked. No, he said, it's for people who need it. She looked at him, surprised. You, he gave a small shrug. People change. Inside, a nurse greeted them without question. No fear, no confusion, just calm professionalism. Sophia was treated carefully, her wounds cleaned, her condition checked. Luca stood in the corner, watching. Not like a boss, not like a man in control, but like someone who wished he had done things differently. Later, when she was resting, she looked at him again. Why? She asked. He met her gaze. Because I should have before. She frowned slightly. Before what? Before everything. Days passed. Sophia stayed, recovered, slowly, and Luca kept his distance, close enough to help, far enough not to overwhelm. Until one evening, she found him sitting alone. You built all this? She asked. Yes. For people like me. He shook his head. For people I failed. She stepped closer. You didn't fail me, she said. He looked up. For a long time, I thought you did, she admitted. But, maybe you just weren't ready. And now, he asked. She smiled softly. Now you stopped the car. Luca leaned back, exhaling slowly. A small moment, simple, but it carried more weight than anything he had done in years. Because power had never felt like this. Not the kind that built. Not the kind that healed. And for the first time, he understood the difference.